This is Off the 11th Hour, and I'm your host, Nathaniel Stone, but we all know who the Lord of Hosts is. Say it with me in any dialect you so choose. Yahuwah, Sabaoth, Kodesh brothers and sisters, fellow members in the body of Messiah, and those in the world, thank you for giving me your attention in a world full of distractions. This is Season 2, Episode 13. Wow, we're getting kind of deep into Season 2. I want to thank you for following along. This is Part 5 of Cannabis Commotion. So I just want to share a couple things here. This is the people's platform. I want people to understand that this is the people's platform. If you have something that you want to share, if you have a testimony, if you have a teaching that you want to come on, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put my my email here. If you want to go ahead and contact me, if you want to come on, I don't really have any more time here for Season 2, but maybe here in a few months when I begin Season 3, I'll have more time so that I can maybe bring on some more guest speakers. I feel that I was blessed with this channel to be able to be a voice for those who don't currently have a voice. If you're a new YouTube, or you have a Patreon or a BitChute or whatever, a Rumble, whatever platform you have, if you're new, you want to network here, you want to get your message out, come on, and feel free and share a website or an email or that you have, so people can contact you so that they can join whatever it is that you're doing in the body of Messiah. That's what we're trying to do here. So with that being said, I just want to share that I have a special guest speaker here. This is Brother Clinton. I'm gonna, before I bring him here on camera, I just want to explain how we reconnected. We're connected in a large group on a mobile platform. In a group that we are in contact with. Well, he had advertised for his study channel, and I've seen different people, they post a link for a study channel before, and I actually was really busy. I had a lot going on, but I felt that that through the Ruach, I felt that I felt called. I felt that small, quiet voice pulling me and telling me to go and join this study. So I joined the study, and then I started talking, and in the beginning, before we started the study, I was sharing that I was doing this series on Cannabis Commotion, and then I shared a couple points, and then the brother started talking to me about some things on his testimony, and then I asked him to come on here on the channel if he wanted to share that testimony with the body, because our testimonies, our personal testimonies, are also for the buildup of the body, because we are told to esteem the Most High as we call on Him, and then also to the word for esteem, glory in Hebrew, kabod. We are to give Him this kabod because He helped us out in times of distress, in times of emergency, helped pull us out of this world, helped to clean us up, helped us to overcome different problems that we all individually are battling against, and then brought us into called us as we're walking into His kingdom, as He chose us. So I had shared this with brother Clinton, and then he said just the day earlier that he was praying that he's able to share his testimony. He's waited for a long while to share his testimony. He has a lot of really interesting things from the little bit that he told me to share with the body, and he said just the day before he was praying to be able to share this. So I don't find this as coincidental. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Brother Clinton, and then I want you to just share, brother, as you feel led. So brother Clinton, thank you for coming on the channel.
Thank you for having me, brother. Nathaniel, it's a blessing to be here, and it is a divine meeting, the way that you explained everything, and how just it was like not even 24 hours beforehand, and when we had spoken on the Zoom meeting that we were on, that I was hosting, and the way that it all happened, it was absolutely divine. The Father, guiding guiding us to meet there and talk about it. So basically, a backstory about myself. This is about cannabis and the commotion that it's causing within the body and within the world. And something that I just want to say from the beginning is I was a marijuana dealer for about 20 years. And I was not just your run of the mill guy. I supplied a 4-state area, and it was something that I focused my whole life on. It was from a young age. It started about 11 years old, everyday usage, and it wasn't something that took me down a good road. It was a long, hard road. It was a road full of deception and addiction, and the the system says that marijuana is not addictive, but it is highly addictive.
Right.
It's highly addictive. Even just the habit forming process of the constant smoking and constant dosing, however you're dosing it. So a little bit of the backstory that got me started. My family was into the business, and they were older than me, and they kind of passed the torch on. And it was really from everything that I'm seeing now in this walk, it was guided by the adversary to get me off track. Because around that same time, I had my dad was a street preacher. He was an ordained minister, and he had a food ministry for the needy, and he helped people out every day, all day, as much as he could. He loved everybody, and I learned a lot from him. And he went and set up a tent meeting for like a tent revival, and there was a prophet that came from Israel. I don't say that word lightly. And this prophet that came from Israel was there for several days, and he picked out a few people out of the crowd. There was a lot of people there, and I was one of them. And I was like 13 years old, and I was becoming really rebellious. And that time in my life where marijuana was starting to become my life, I was really rebellious and just wanted to do my own thing. So what had happened was he picked me out, prophesied over me, and a little backstory on him. He had raised 5 little kids from the dead. 3 of them were already in the casket, embalmed. And he was actually a Sabbath keeping man that wore a white robe, from what I remember. Pretty sure he had zeets, and he was about 90 years old, spoke with an interpreter, and he was the real deal. And the Father used him miraculously for a lot of things. So he wasn't your just run of the mill, person that you run into that's in this walk. And he picked me out, told me I was wise beyond my years. I had a deep understanding for the Father's word. I had a golden tongue for the Father's word, and that I was supposed to be a teacher and a preacher is the short version of the prophecy that he prophesied over me. So with that being said, I chose marijuana, and I chose that life. I chose the life of what came with that: money, sex, women, and other drugs. And it was not the right path to choose looking back, but it's the path that I took, and the Father has used it to turn me into the person that I am today, and to have testimony and be able to speak life into others instead of death, as we have the power of life and death in the tongue. So to cut to the chase on how this really affected me, it caused me to have severe anxiety. Severe anxiety caused me to be almost schizophrenic. Um, it was something that, I smoked all day, every day. It was, but not just that, it was a financial burden. Even though I made tons of money back then, it was a financial burden. I would smoke and eat because I was using the edibles. I would smoke and consume anywhere from $300 to $400 worth of marijuana just to get out of bed in the morning over a 3 to 4 hour period. That was what I did to prepare for the world for the day, so to speak, just to feel normal. And it's a drug that I've studied from the molecular level, which, when you look at how it's made, and the effects it has on the body scientifically, the molecules bind to our nervous system and they slow it way down. Right? They slow it way down.
So this is the endocannabinoid system, essentially, right?
Well, we have the endocannabinoid system in our body, but this is the aspect of the way that the drug actually affects our body. This is the way that the drug actually affects our body when the THC, when that binds to our nervous system, it causes our body to just like have a little bit of it's like it melts, and we turn into someone else. And it begins to cause us to feel things that we wouldn't normally feel. You'll hear people talk about, oh, well, you just get so creative when you smoke. We're able to just get in the zone. And yeah, it takes you to a zone. It takes you to a zone that is not who you really are. I often hear my family speak of they love who I am now. I was like a zombie before. I would get high and the word tells us that we have to have eyes to see and ears to hear. In many places, Mark chapter 4, all over the place it speaks about it, and people not being able to understand things. And one of my favorite sayings was, I'm blinded. And back then I thought it was a good thing, right? I'm like, I'm blinded. And I would wake up and tell my family that was with me, my cousins, say, y'all ready to get blinded? And that was a term that I didn't even really understand how negative it was. I didn't understand how deep that was in that statement. And that's what I was. I was literally blinded every day. I was blinded. I was blinded by a drug that had a serious effect. And that's one thing that people don't realize as well. These days we have marijuana that's much more potent than what it used to be a long time ago. And we're up in the high 20s to the low 30s on average with this medical cannabis.
That's interesting, because I had said, I think it was episode 1. It was in episode 1, the beginning of episode 2. I was talking about the article that I had. It was saying that THC was about 2% in the 70s, and then floating around 13% now. So now you're saying, I don't remember when that article was written. Now you're saying that THC, is this in plant form, is now in the mid to upper 20s?
Yeah.
Wow. So that's wow, that's crazy. Let me do the math on that. What would you say, like just kind of a round number? You want to use what, like 28, or what would you say about on average a lot of
26, 27, 28, yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay, yeah. So Wow. So I had said marijuana was about 6.5 times more powerful just since the 1970s. Now, if we're using 26% THC in plant form, that's 13 times more powerful since the 70s. That's in 50 years, this drug has gotten 13 times more powerful. Wow, that's interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to make that point. So, I didn't realize that the flower plant is even that potent at all now.
Oh, you're good, brother. Interrupt is needed. It only helps with the conversation here. Yeah, it's very potent. And then the other aspect that we have of it is they're taking this plant, and what they do is they have these glass tubes, and they even have huge facilities where they do this. And they take 7 to 10 times refined butane, and they run it through this tube and with the marijuana, and they get an extract out of it called honey oil or wax. And it's what the people call dabs now, and they smoke dabs, and it's anywhere from 89, but on average to about 97 to 99% THC.
Wow. And so in episode in episode 1, I essentially am talking to people about THC toxicity. Because a lot of times people are saying that this plant is, it's just a natural plant as the Creator created, 7,000 years ago. He called it very good on the 6th day of creation, Genesis 1:29. And then if we're going from day 3 when plants were created, 9 plus or minus thousand years ago. Where a lot of times people that are using cannabis, they're using scriptures to justify their lifestyle as though this is the same plant that was created then. But now, and this is kind of like where that spirit of delusion comes in, is that people, they take an element of truth that he created plants. He did, all seed producing plant. Yes, he said it was good on day 3, very good on day 6, but sin has entered into the world. That's not the same plant that he created then, especially when people are putting fire to it, and especially even more so when people are basically extracting a certain THC and then highly concentrating that. That's not even the same. It's not even in the same ballpark at all.
No, it's not. It would be one thing if we were taking the flour and putting it on our food and eating it and not getting hardly anything out of it at all. Because the body, when we actually consume something like that, say if that's what it was done, it was put in a salad and we ate it and it was not dried and all that, it wouldn't cause an effect like it has when we smoke it and when we extract everything, because that's why they put it through that process. It magnifies it, by the thousands. It magnifies the effect.
That's an interesting.
So
go ahead.
So with that being said, it takes it to a whole nother level that humans can't even comprehend what they're doing.
I want to touch on that point that you shared. You said that if you put it on a salad, and when you said that reminded me of like a spice. And that word bosham, I forget the strong numbers on it, but that's what's found in Exodus chapter 30:23. When it says kana bosham, that word, or where they say cannabis. So that word bosham is found in that same verse as cinnamon bosham, and so cinnamon bosham, and then kana bosham. So that word bosham, when you look at it in the Strong's number, it actually literally means a spice. And so that's kind of, if you're putting like pepper or salt or oregano or something, if you're going to put something like that on a salad, you're not sitting there and putting putting like some hyper hybridized plant or some extract from the plant that's highly concentrated, and then putting a fire to it and then smoking it to where there's no evidence of smoking at all in the scriptures. There is evidence of incense, but not of putting your mouth right on the exhaust pipe, and no evidence at all of smoking cannabis. But I just kind of wanted to touch on that point that it's the same thing. People take what is created for good, and then they twist it into workings of Satan. So I wanted to touch on that point. Thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome, brother. Yeah, it's something that as the fire hits it, it's interesting that, we see that Yah is an everlasting fire, and we look at what we've been given fire for. We can use it for good things, or we can take it and we can come up with all these different ways of going down these pathways. I mean, you look at all the drugs that fire is used to smoke, from meth to crack to all of these PCP to all these different drugs, and it's not natural. It's
Right.
not natural. And you see, in the world that I was involved in, I had to watch people destroy themselves every day. And if I wasn't high, there's no way that I could have watched it for as long as I did. There's no way, because it was sickening. It was sad. And even the level of what I watch people do for marijuana, I watch people, steal. They would do all kinds of things just to get drugs. It was every day. I was talking to my cousin earlier today. He's the one that kind of passed the torch over to me. When I started selling weed, and he was a big time weed dealer. He just actually, he stopped for a long time, and then after I quit, he got back into it. And he just recently got put in a situation where he got locked up for about a month and a half for the first time ever for any time of a period of time. And he told me, he's like, he said, I'm done with it. He said, I had there's I won't say a name, but there's a professional boxer that was very famous that had him 10,000 pounds of marijuana lined up, for very very cheap prices. And he's like, I'm done with it. So he came home and he's clean. It's the first time he's been clean in 25 years.
Wow.
And this drug, just whether it's the money from selling it, or in his house, like, the feds raided his house while we used to work together, and they took several pounds of what I had made available there, and they confiscated it. I ended up giving him like 10,000 for a lawyer, and he never even went to jail. He wasn't home when they kicked his door in. And there's a really good lawyer here in town that was he was an ex-drug dealer, one of the biggest drug dealers in the eastern, East Coast. And he became a lawyer, and he could get you off of pretty much anything, besides something real serious. And it just takes you down all kind of roads. And not to say that everybody that's in this walk is doing something to that level, and people could say, well, that's pretty extreme. You guys were like really addicted, and you guys smoked ounces a day, and you used like marijuana like $400 or $500 a day, $600 a day, like a crack habit, almost, or a cocaine habit. But it doesn't start out that way, and it doesn't always end that way. But it is a drug that makes you more comfortable with doing other things, even if it's sinful nature. We're not sober-minded. It's not something that, and that's the other aspect. We're told to be sober-minded. We're told to be diligent and to follow the word, and we're not being sober-minded. And the problem is with alcohol, you can actually say, okay, well, I normally drink this wine right here, and I can have a half a glass and I'm good and I don't get drunk. I'm not a drunkard. If I drink a glass of it, I'm gonna be drunk. With marijuana, you don't know what you're smoking. You don't know how potent it is. You know, I've picked a bud out of a bag and smoked it, and it wasn't from the top of the plant. It wasn't as strong, and I had to smoke more of that from the same batch of marijuana.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what I had shared. I'm trying to remember which episode it was. I had shared a website that was talking about that's part of the problem with the medicinal marijuana that doctors are coming up with right now that they're finding is that differences from crop to crop or even batches within the same plant, they're having difficulties knowing exactly how to prescribe because there's such different potencies from one or from the other.
yeah, that's very true. And the other aspect is when I started eating edibles that were actually from dispensaries, like they have gummy bears and whatnot. They
Right.
have like 10 in a bag. The way that the oils set up in the gummy material, it doesn't mix very well. So you might get one gummy that is as strong as all the gummies in the whole bag,
Wow.
and you know, you could tell when it happens because it causes someone to be really high, which really high in our terms to Abba's terms is really drunk.
Right. And that's
And
the other thing about alcohol is that alcohol processes out of our system pretty quickly. But marijuana that stays in your system. You know, depending on how much an individual is smoking and how saturated it is, it could take anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months to get out of the system. So it's not just that, the sober minded, and it just kicks right back in. This stays in your system, and essentially can have its grasp on you for weeks after even a single time use.
oh yeah, it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to a month to break out of the chains of the bondage that it puts you in.
Hmm.
You know, it's very hard to break away from that one. And when someone enjoys getting a buzz, so to speak, from marijuana, uh, they are easily persuaded in lots of ways to continue to do it because, oh, well, I only smoke it once a day,
Yeah.
or I only take one hit, or I only take two hits. And
Hmm.
granted, you know, each person is going to have their own beliefs. I'm here sharing. I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm here sharing the negative sides of it because I was an advocate for it for about 20 years.
Yeah, you said
There
that
were
you
people.
trying to get it legalized. You helped with that with getting the medicinal side.
Yeah, we were all part of you know, the process of how it. There was a organization called Normal. It was not spelled how normal is spelled. It was missing a letter or so, but we, you know, supported that movement, and we were all about it getting legalized. And you know, we would fly on planes to marijuana farms in California and all kinds of stuff. You know, it was it was before. You see, now it's socially accepted, and you see that should be a big red flag for everybody anyway. Is the world accepts it now?
Right.
So we're told in John chapter 15 that he got us from the world, but we are not to be of the world.
Hmm.
And this is a worldly thing that the world now accepts. And not only that, it doesn't just accept it, but it promotes it.
Yeah.
It promotes it. And, you know, anyone that sits back and tells me, oh, well, it's okay, we can do that, we can have a drink, or, not a drink, but a smoke instead of a drink, we can have a drink and we know what we're drinking. We know we're drinking some wine. We know, we're taking a sip of some alcohol and we're not getting drunk. We know the difference. We can stop. It's on a level of we know when to stop if we have self control.
And on top of that,
Prob-
alcohol is spoken about and permitted in the scripture. So it is its use, even though there is we should have a control on it. It is something that is standardized. In fact, even Messiah's first miracle, turning water to wine. But what we don't see is any evidence anywhere of anybody smoking any kind of drug, let alone a plant, marijuana.
yeah, we don't see him turning wheat into marijuana.
Right,
You know,
right.
we don't we
So
don't see him turning wheat into marijuana, and that's something that with what you just said, it hits on the thing of in First John chapter 2 verse 6, it tells us if we abide in him, and he abides in us, brethren, we should walk even as he walked.
mm,
And I can sit here and say no one's going to convince me ever that Yeshua was walking around smoking a joint,
right,
ever, ever, or that he ever will. No
mm,
one's going to ever convince me of that.
right,
So, it's kind of like, what would Yeshua do?
right,
And what would he not do?
yeah,
And I know what he would do. He would be going around telling people to repent for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. What he would not be doing is walking around with a joint saying, repent for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. You guys need to get blinded like me.
right, right.
Let's all get high together. And I know this is to the extreme, but people need to hear this because it's not a joke.
Yeah. That's I shared some of my testimony in part 4, season 2, part 4, episode 4, season 2, part 4 of Cannabis Commotion. I shared my some of my testimony, and I for one can attest that I lost spiritual gifts. I lost my spiritual zeal. I had a couple supernatural events, or a few that was connected with it. I find they say that that marijuana is a gateway drug. I found that it was more than just calling it a gateway drug. I found that it was a gateway into the erosion of my spiritual walk on a whole set of levels. And so you said that you experienced a loss in spiritual gifts when you turned when you came to the Torah walk, and then got sucked into this doctrine of all plants producing seed. So by the way, just kind of on the topic, how did you get called into Torah initially? What brought you? Did you come out of your roots? Were you Christian, or were you atheist? And how did you get, like, where are your roots, and then how did you get called into this Torah walk in the first place?
So, I was raised non-denominational, in Christian church. We were raised in more of what I would call a stricter upbringing because my dad was born in 1933. He didn't have an education, so he would say things in scripture that the church would preach is okay. Like he would tell us, we're not supposed to be eating that pork over there.
Mm,
We're not supposed to do this. We are supposed to do that. It's like he got that the law applied without ever being taught by the technical church that it applied. So it was pretty cool having him as a dad because, being a kid and him being 53 when I was born,
wow.
I got to learn from an old man about a lot of wisdom, and that's all he did his whole life while I was alive, and he was alive, at the same time. before he passed away, he left that with me of, he prayed, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and he'd be praying, and I mean, he's an older man at that point, worked hard, but that's all he did was, work and do kingdom work for the Father. So anyhow, I already had been shown, because I have been blessed with a lot of spiritual gifts. I'd already been shown that Sunday was not the Sabbath, like 10 years, 15 years before I came to this walk. I had been shown that Christmas was not something for us to be celebrating, that it was a Roman pagan thing. And I was done with it, like, probably a good 8 to 9 years before I came to this walk. So when I came to the understanding of the Torah, I was studying the book of Genesis, and I saw that there was a Enoch in there that never had a human death, and I was like, man, where's this guy at? Where's his book? So it got me interested in it, and I was to the point to where, I mean, I was so blinded by drugs and whatnot that I didn't even know if I believed there was a creator anymore. And the Father really pressed me and woke me up, and praise Yah that he did so, because it was a very dark rock that I was stuck under. And I was in my own prison, so to speak. So it's a long story of how all that took place, but I started following him on things, and a brother had, challenged me and said, well, just keep the Sabbath, and I was like, okay, well, I'll try to keep the Sabbath. And I said, it's my farm in the background there. I'll take myself out of the picture for a second. That's part of my farm there.
That's pretty.
I have organic farm. Thank you. I have an organic farm in West Virginia. And, I was like, if I change around, my busiest day of the week was Saturday, and it's tough as a farmer anyway. It's like one of the toughest things you can do. And, I said, if I change it around, I'm going to lose my business. And he's like, well, just do it. The Father will honor it. He'll show you. So I changed it around, and before I got off the phone with him, I said, what's he going to do, man? Start sending me checks in the mail? So about a month and a half later, I had changed things around and told all the farm market managers, I'm done with doing Saturday sales, and only be there on Sundays. A month and a half later, I get this FedEx check in the mail, $9,800.
Wow.
Out of nowhere, out of the blue. Some lawsuit somebody filed like 15 years ago. I had forgot all about, anything, like I didn't know I even was able to get a lawsuit against these people. And I mean, granted, I know what the Torah says about suing people now, but then it was a blessing, because I needed it to survive through the winter. And it was a way that he woke me up. So it was a pretty big deal, man. I don't know how many people went out to the mailbox and got a $10,000 check out of it, so to speak, out of the FedEx truck. But
wow,
it's the best thing I've ever got out of a FedEx truck. And I don't worship money, but it's nice to have what you need,
right?
to live, So praise Yah, when that happened, I was like, well, if I didn't just stick my big foot in my mouth.
Right. Sent you a check in the mail. Yeah.
Exactly what I questioned, well, what's he going to send me a check in the mail? And not only that, it's better. He sends me two. I got another almost $2,000 some a couple months later, in the toughest part of the year for a farmer, which is right almost at the end of February, at March. So I don't have any money come in until like April or so on the farm. So yeah, it was such a blessing, Nathaniel. So yeah, that's part of my testimony on how I came to the Torah and realizing that it was the truth. And I just kept asking the Father, show me your ways, show me your ways. And that's something that I say. If you are second guessing what we're saying about marijuana, if you're second guessing and your flesh is fighting the spirit because the flesh is, weak and the spirit is willing, I challenge you to pray to the Father and ask Him to reveal it to you, and test the Spirit to make sure it's from Him, because He will do so. Luke chapter 11 tells us, as we ask abundantly for the Spirit, what father would give a son a serpent or a scorpion if he asked for bread?
Right.
And how much more does our Heavenly Father love us that He will give us the set apart Spirit abundantly? So as we ask for these things to be revealed, we knock and seek, we shall find. He will reveal it to us.
You touched on something that I wanna bring up. In the series previous to this on the Abomination of Desolation, I don't get in so much to a whole lot of the end times prophetic revelation of Abomination of Desolation. I do get into it, but the primary part of that 3-part series is I talk about what sacrifice is continual. And in that, what sacrifice is continual, I essentially link that in with just a bunch of scriptures and talk about how what sacrifice is under the priestly order of Melchizedek, and what sacrifices like the Hebrews 9 and 10 talks about. That these things in the Mosaic system were a parable, were basically a comparison until a time of setting matters straight. And then I went in to talk about how prayer is connected in with incense. Also, prayer is connected in with setting fire. Like it's a prayer. I linked all these scriptures in part 2 of Abomination of Desolation primarily. And then I talk about how every morning and every evening to thank and praise Yahuwah. The main point that the main connection after I made the connection was the link between Hebrews 13, 15, and 16 and 1 Chronicles 23, 30, and 31. And there were 5 points. There's the word thank, praise, the word continual, Yahuwah, his name, and then a link in with sacrifice. And so part of our sacrifice that we do every day is to thank his name, to praise him, offer thanksgiving, to help others, to do good, to share, and offer a prayer. And, we're supposed to be praying without ceasing. And so if we're praying without ceasing and prayer is connected in with sacrifice, and then I link that in with Nadab and Abihu in Leviticus chapter 10, verses 1 through 9, 1 through 10, Nadab and Abihu, they put fire in their incense holder, and then they brought strange fire before Yahuwah at the tent of appointment, and then he killed them. And then in verse 9 it says, don't come to the tent of appointment, essentially if you've been drinking wine or strong drink. So the precept that's established there is that Nadab and Abihu were not sober-minded when they went before the tent of appointment, and they brought strange fire. Now, us in the order of Melchizedek, when we're supposed to be praying without ceasing, and our life is a living sacrifice, when we have anything in our system, and including because Cannabis Commotion that we're talking about, when we have cannabis in our system, and then we're praying, we're essentially we're doing the sin that got Nadab and Abihu killed. There's a man who picked up sticks on the Sabbath, so people that break the Sabbath is a death penalty sin. Well, also praying with strange fire was also a death penalty sin. And we as priests, as we are praying without ceasing, and that we're doing this, it's connected in with that daily sacrifice. So when we compromise our body or compromise our body mind under something that stays in our system for more than just a few hours, one drink is about 1 hour of time to your liver to process that out. And alcohol is found in scriptures, but something like marijuana that is vastly more potent than what it was even just since the 70s, and then you connect that in with not being sober minded, and then you connect that in with the spiritual sacrifice. It really, and then with my testimony, and then with your testimony, brother, I really hope that it reaches people so that they understand that what it is that they're doing. Especially if they're doing this while witnessing, while doing priest work, while talking, doing something that's sacrificial to the Most High, whether it's prayer, doing good and sharing with others, anything that's connected with the spiritual sacrifice system. If we're doing it under the influence, therefore it can be affecting and influencing on a negative aspect with the Ruach Kodesh, because that's the precept that's established with Nadab and Abihu. We should really take care when we're doing these things. I personally, and wherever anyone's at, unless it's an emergency, which it's not really an emergency, but I don't like to even pray when I have alcohol in my system, because I understand that point with Nadab and Abihu. But I wanted to ask more on like how did you get marijuana? Like how, after you came into this Torah walk, what kind of what brought you into going back to marijuana, and then how did that affect your spiritual walk personally?
That's where I was going next.
Good
that you asked me. So basically what had happened was I had started using before I had come to the walk, and I was kind of sick and tired, just that saying of, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And I was like, show me the truth, Father. Take the lies of the world away. Show me your truth, and I'll submit. He started dumping it on me within 24 hours. Has been ever since. And so it wasn't. I'm going to say it wasn't a month or two maybe when I came to this walk that, he pressed upon me that I wasn't supposed to be using cannabis anymore. And he did it in the manner of, okay, Father, I know that you have given me gifts, and I'm supposed to speak your word, and I'm supposed to be a mouthpiece for you. But I can't remember anything. I can't focus, and I can't go through the word like I'm supposed to. And he started showing me that I had the ability, but I had to stop. I had to stop using it. So he helped me stop, and it was easy. It was easy compared to the next time. And he started downloading the word in me, and I would ask him, like, I don't even want to have to read it. I just want to be able to quote scriptures and go from scripture to scripture and book to book. And, that's just how he made me at this. It's something that I desired. So, and he gave it to me. He started to give it to me abundantly. I'm like maybe 6 months to 8. I'm gonna say 6 months in my walk, and I came home one day and I had the Delta 8 CBD, and some people may see something wrong with CBD if it's regular CBD with like no THC in it. I found it to be like a medicinal, like painkiller. It numbs. It's like taking an aspirin or something. Has no psychoactive effects whatsoever. I'm personally not against that. I understand if anyone is, but the CBD Delta 8 actually is an extract of highly formulated THC, and it's Delta 8 THC. Delta 9, which it's THC stands for tetrahydrocannabinol, and it is a different type of THC, but it is THC. So the Delta 9 is what's in marijuana. The Delta 8 is what they've extracted from the CBD plant. And what they do is they, through a chemical process, they take it and turn it into something that is like an oil, and people smoke it through like vape and stuff like that, which is very addictive in itself. I had never done that stuff really until I started using that Delta 8, and it was very addictive because it's like right there, it's vape, right? It's a vapor. You can smoke it indoors, you can smoke it anywhere. Right? People don't, they don't have a problem with it. So, long story short, I came home one day and I was like, I had some pain and whatnot in my body, and I was not sleeping as well as I would like to. And I was like, you know what? I bet you, because I had never quit with something like that on my shelf before. It was on my shelf for months. And I said, you know what? This is really great. Alva really did give me the ability to quit. I can just leave it sit there, and I don't even want it. And I thought about throwing it away, but I was like, I'll never do it again, so I'm not worried about it. Well, it got to be long enough, and I said, you know what? I bet you I could take a hit of that, and I could be okay. And I'll just take one hit. One hit turned into two turned into three, and three turned into smoking it all day, every day and night again.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. Second time too. Similar.
Yeah. And it was really bad because I had been shown how the Father was going to work through me for his will and for his kingdom, and he stripped that away from me. The Ruach was not working in me at all. I felt dead. I didn't have the peace of past all understanding anymore. And it hit me so hard one day that I was just like, you're turning me over to my own desires.
Yeah.
Please don't turn me over to my own desires, as the word says. And I just begged him to help me quit it, because I couldn't quit at that time. It had me wrapped. It was like the verses that say, the demons come back into the house 7 times worse than they did the first time, and
that's Matthew 12.
Not that I think I was
Matthew 12, 43 through 45, right?
It's not that I think I was possessed. It's the process of realizing that, wow, this is not easy. I don't want to say easy. He made it easy the first time. Like, okay, you asked, I'm gonna help you. You've really truly submitted to me. But now that you have went back on the word and you have transgressed, and you're doing something that causes you to be drunk all day, every day, and you enjoy it, you're taking it over me now. Not only are you enjoying it, but you're doing it. You wake up, and that was my point I was going to make about my cousin, was he told me in 25 years, he's like, it's the first time in my life I haven't woke up thinking, I've already got it, or where am I going to go to get it?
Right.
Because we had so many drugs, we normally already had it.
That's a sign of an addict, of an addiction, for sure.
Yeah. So, when we look at, fast forward at where I was at, it took a couple weeks for me really to understand that the set apart spirit. I couldn't quote scripture anymore. I couldn't even witness to people, bro. I couldn't even witness to people anymore. it got to the point to where I wouldn't even talk about the Father because I was so miserable and I was so separated from him that I knew, I knew I was damned if I didn't change.
It
And I
wouldn't
was
be,
like,
say, for me, I don't know about for you, it wouldn't, for me it wasn't that I felt that I was possessed, because you had touched on that. I want to like touch on that point briefly. But to me, what it felt like was that there was a power and principality that was now in a had a position of authority, so to speak, over me, now that I was battling against. So it wasn't, in my fourth in the fourth part of this of Cannabis Commotion, when I shared my testimony, I was attacked by a spirit, a demon, that had manifested, that looked like an alien gray that had come up and attacked. And the Father told me that I had a rend in my spiritual armor, and it was trying to jump into my heart. And so I don't think that there was, because of that experience, I don't think that there was a possession in me, but I do believe that there was a power and principality. There was some type of like a control harness mechanism or something that this drug does that kind of like starts to tear the fabric of your mind. It starts to tear the sobriety. It starts to tear like the fabric of your righteousness, of your soul, of the spirit. Starts opening, making holes, and eventually, if that gets big enough, maybe something can slip through the cracks. But I wanted to kind of share, and touch on that point that that's what I think the biggest danger with marijuana is that it makes you so complacent, and it makes you so especially when you're getting high every day. For sure, you're going to an extreme. But I think that the extreme, I wanted to touch on this earlier, because you had said earlier that not everyone goes to this extreme. I wanted to mention that I don't think that I think that when something is blown, I don't want to say out of proportion, but when something is expanded bigger, you tend to kind of see the little details better when something is so big in your life, versus if it's smaller, it might not be as easy to see. But when it's expanded bigger in your life, then you start seeing like the minutia that is in there. And I find that when cannabis is taken to the extreme, it really exposes the high levels and the dangers that are in there. But even in smaller form, what THC toxicity, someone that can be more of a functional addict, so to speak. They say a functional addict, someone that can still they're coping with their addiction, but they're still doing their job. They're still doing a lot of the responsibilities, but it is still hindering them in certain aspects, is still consuming part of their life, but they're able to keep it at bay, so to speak. But I think that when things get taken to the extreme is when we're able to see more of the dangers. But it's dangerous because it has that gradualism. It has that it's kind of like flies under the radar, so to speak, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, what happened? How did this get so strong in my life?
yeah. And I mean, even on a high level, I was functional,
You're
I
right.
was functional. I mean, I was, working, 3 or 4 different businesses and dealing with people every day. And, but, it's like now, you have everybody's talking about it. Again, going back to it, it's like everybody's talking about it. My sister has never smoked, and she's like, I had this guy that, she was explaining to me that this guy that was some business that came to talk to her. He's like some big wig, and he's like, "Oh, well, have you ever smoked marijuana?" And it's like it's the thing to do now.
Right.
And it's like when I was coming up in the world, 10 or 12 years ago, when I was big time into selling it, it was shunned upon. It was shunned upon. It was still frowned upon by a big percentage of the country. And now it's like the thing to do. And we have to be very careful of these things that the world is offering. That is, oh yeah, this will make you feel better. This will help you sleep. Well, it'll get to a point to where it could help you sleep, but it has a bunch of other side effects that come with it.
Yeah, that's the
It makes you
Hydra.
eat. Yeah, it makes you eat uncontrollably.
Yeah,
It makes people gain serious weight.
yeah.
It causes you to not have any self-control whatsoever.
I got
I'm
almost
talking about your self-control.
300 pounds. I almost got to 300 pounds after my second time in my tour walk, falling into it. Yeah, I was terrible. I look back at photos. I'm like, what happened? Oh my goodness.
I was 100 pounds overweight, bro. I'm the same way. And just so everybody knows, being brother and Nathaniel, we know each other, but we've never talked about all this stuff in detail
No.
like this before. So it's not like we, pre-rehearsed this or anything. This is all organic.
Yeah, that's how I like
And
it. Yeah.
yeah, it's led by the Spirit. So, the similarities there. It's not for it's not something that's like, we planned it this way. It's just the way that it is when you deal with that drug. It's the weight you gain. You have no self-control on eating. You splurge. You binge. The money that's spent. Financial issues. I mean, it's just like the comedian Cat Williams. He's as vulgar as it gets, but he's like, just go take some Ethanol, and you won't care about paying your electric bill anymore. You won't care about paying your light bill, right?
Right.
You won't care about this and that, and and I mean, it's sad that there's comedians out there that can make a living off of talking about how marijuana will make you not care. You know,
Yeah.
that vulgar word that so many of us use for not caring. He throws it out there 1,000 times, but I'll never forget that skit where he's like, "Oh yeah, your light bill will be due, and you won't pay it, and you won't care."
Yeah.
You
That.
know,
Right.
and it,
Yeah.
yeah, the bill collectors will be calling you, and you'll be like, "Everything's just perfectly fine. You just take another hit." You
Right.
know, as long as you got some weed, you'll be good.
Right.
You know, and that's the part that people can say, oh well, now that I'm into the Torah community, I can take a hit and I can control myself. Well, don't be deceived. Don't be deceived.
It's real easy to go down that
And
road.
it is, it is,
There's
and
I don't think I shared this. I do want to share a brief, a little point. And I'm not gonna. I know of two cases, and obviously I'm not gonna tell anyone who it is, and I doubt anyone knows who it is. I know, it's probably, a lot of people do. I know hundreds of people, thousands of people in this tour walk. So, but I know of two cases, of one individual that was that this household was using cannabis, and it caused infidelity, and the one person had an affair with someone outside the marriage, and it ended up the marriage broke up because of it. And cannabis was a gateway, so that led with the person lowering their defense shields. It caused them not to care about cool off in their spiritual walk. And I know of another person that got into using pretty heavy, and it caused a division in the marriage. And I'm not even in contact with this individual, so I don't know if things ended or not. But I know of two cases that essentially that mindset really eroded people, and these individuals were knowledgeable in the scriptures, and it's sad to see that caused families to break up, and the pain that it was, because people were essentially deceived in it being just natural, a seed producing plant, and so go ahead and green light the green plant, and you don't have to have any level of concern at all in it.
yeah, it's sad at the things that it does and it causes, but we all have choices, and we all have choices to make, and we can either choose to let Yah give us that peace that passes all understanding. It's like when I need to go to sleep and I can't sleep, I pray to him, and I end up waking up and I'm like, wow, he knocked me out, like I just asked, and here I couldn't sleep, and now I'm waking up and it's like, wow, I actually went to sleep. Like, cool. Thank you, Father, and it tells us if we have not, we've asked not. And if it has to do with his will and it's good for us, he gives abundantly. This is what faith is. So when we have that faith with mustard seed, what do we have to rely on some plant for to make us feel the way that we want to feel? And that's the other thing. It's like the whole, why do you do it? Oh, what helps me with pain?
Right.
Well, if it really is that big of a deal, there's a plant called CBD that has no psychoactive effects. It has the same pain relief, if not better. And there you go. Oh, well, I like the way that it makes me feel. Oh, so you don't like feeling like yourself then. You want to be someone else. You want to be high.
Right.
Go take a drink of wine if you want to feel joyful. Go take a drink of wine. Yeshua turned water into wine. It was his first miracle, right? So when we see these different things, it's where is the justification coming from? We know that we have two enemies in this world. We have their adversary, Hasatan, Satan, and we have our own flesh, our fleshly body, which one thing that I tried to fulfill, you can do as many drugs as you want. You can sleep with as many men or women as you want. You can go out and eat as much rich food as you want. You can make as much money as you want. I've made $25,000 in one day before. You can do whatever you'd like to fulfill the flesh. You will never fulfill the fleshly desires.
More is never enough.
And no, it's never enough. It's never enough. And it's created that way.
Yeah.
It was created that way. We have an immunity to fulfilling the flesh because people wonder why I got to smoke more to get high. Why I got to do more of this to feel better. I have to do more of that. It's because the flesh was created to not be fulfilled, but the spirit is willing. The flesh is weak, and the spirit can be fulfilled as we ask Yah to fill us with that spirit. That spirit man inside us that we all have, that we all know, that small still voice every now and then, the things that it shows us and it guides us, he gives that abundantly to us. And as he does that, it's the picture of perfection, and that is the peace that passes all understanding. And if we're not looking to him to make us feel good, then what do we really have? What do we really have? Are we putting marijuana on the throne and saying, well, you know what, I only hit it once a day, but you know what, I love it because the way it makes me feel. And people can try to lie to themselves all day long and say, well, you know what, I don't worship marijuana, I smoke twice a day. Well, take it away one time and see how many times you think about it. Do you think about it more times than you think about the Father? Or do you think about it more times than you think about him? There's your problem. There's your problem. That's just one aspect of it.
Yeah, and
so
right.
Essentially we put it on the throne, just like everything else in the world that we can sit back and, if we're worshiping our wife or our husbands, if we're worshiping, our job, there's so many things we can put on the throne.
Yeah,
it goes back to self.
Right. Oh, I was going to say, I talk about that in detail on my Mark of the Beast. I have a 4-part series, and that's part 2 of the Mark of the Beast series in season 1 about idolatry. And idolatry can be anything. I even said it could be a spouse, it could be a job, a workout, religion. Many people idolize their religion. Anything. It's so easy to get caught up. Why add to the complication by using something that makes your mind even more delusional, brings that sobriety shield down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as we're kind of getting ready to kind of close off, what helped you, when you got sucked back into it, and you're using what was CB8, or was that what you were saying? No, what was it that you were saying? CBD
CBD Delta 8.
Delta 8, that's what it was, right? What after you got sucked into it, and and I'll say, the same thing with me when I got sucked into marijuana, in the second time. Oh no, sorry, in the first time, I was driving through Colorado, and I stopped at Colorado, and I picked up some at a dispensary, and I went to like a natural hot springs, and I'm there, and I was doing some witnessing, and then all of a sudden it hit me, and I was doing witnessing, and right in the middle of my sentence, all of a sudden like it hit me, and like I literally felt like the ruach get cut off. I felt completely stopped from my spiritual gifts. I couldn't even form a sentence. And then I just ended up like stopped talking and turned away, and then just essentially spaced out at that point in time. I've experienced that, but what helped? And so I'm relating with you. I felt like you and I are walking in experiences with cannabis are similar. Because the side effects are similar. And I think before I ask you the question, I think the most major issue with THC is in the higher toxicity, and certain genetic people have certain genetic predispositions, but definitely the higher toxicity that the more potent THC you're putting in your body, the higher risk that an individual is going to be running for having some type of a mental illness, whether it's anxiety, or schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder, whatever it is. And these things are proven that THC causes that. I get into that in episode 1, but what helped you to finally overcome this after you allowed it back into your walk? What was it that broke that and then got you to remove that? And then once you remove that, what was there any blessings that you received, or anything that you were able to recover from after that?
Yeah. So, to just touch real quick, I had about 30 some different issues from marijuana side effects over years of time that I dealt with, even suicide,
Mm.
all the way across the board. It was bad. So basically, how I came out of that was I was just so disconnected from the Father. He had given me such a deep connection with Him, with the Word and being able to witness to people and my calling. And it's like He stripped it from me. And I felt lost. And I just begged Him to not turn me over to my own desires and help me kick it. And it's like He showed me, okay, well, you get down to the last little bit of what you've got, you wean yourself off of it, I'm going to help you. And this is how you're going to do it. And I weaned myself off of it. And um, I got to the point to where it started getting out of my system. I mean, I fiended for it a little bit, really desired it, but He took the desire away from me at a certain point. And it wasn't as easy as that first time.
Mm.
It wasn't as easy. I remember it. I'll never forget it. And, when He brought me out of that, and He brought the spiritual gifts back, and He started, I asked Him, because even after I was off of it, that stuff causes brain damage.
Yeah.
It's a chemical.
Yeah.
The Delta 8 is a chemical, and I thought, well, this is legal, it does the same thing as marijuana. I'm going to smoke this, So and it's even marijuana does the same thing. I mean, it's everything's a chemical, but there are toxic chemicals in there that once it's burned, it fries the brain.
Yeah.
It fries the brain. And I had to ask Him to bring back my memory. I had to ask Him to bring back my ability to quote Scripture, and just do his will. And over time, he did bring it back to me, and he showed me that it was what I thought it was, and that I was disconnected from the rock. And yeah, it was it was not a good feeling being where I was at. So as he opened my eyes up to the truth of the matter, I was like, oh wow, you're going to use this for your kingdom. You're going to use this as part of my testimony. And he pressed that upon me early on, and I have recorded parts of my testimony of where I would see someone struggling on a chat on an online platform, and I would go and record a 10-minute message and be like, look, if you're struggling with this or that, whatever the spirit put in my spirit at that time, I just spoke it with them. And it was amazing
Mm.
because they had amazing results from it. They quit smoking marijuana and all different things. And then you have those few people that listen to it and they're like, well, I take one toke a day, and try to justify it. I'm like, well, would you sure be doing it?
Right.
That's the bottom line. Would you sure be doing it? Would the master be walking around smoking a bowl? Would he be looking around for plants to say, you know what, I just need to smoke one time a day so I feel good? No.
Right. I cover that in part 3 of Cannabis Commotion. I share a website that just went to the extreme, and they literally say that they say that that he was healing, that all of his miracles, or a large portion of his miracles, was because of cannabis, and that he was called the Anointed because he was anointed with cannabis oil, and that he was high, and that Moses was smoking the attentive appointment with all the brother. And I there's a website on part 3. It's crazy that they were saying that the burning bush was what he said it was likely cannabis. Well, why would he even put that? This guy took it to such a far level. It was just so. And so some people, and it just shows the level of delusion that someone is under this drug, as it grabs hold of someone and it's pulling them further and further away from truth. It's eroding that person's mental health to where they would justify even to not only to think that, but for that individual to write that and then put that up on a website and then link everything that I talked about in part 3. I said that I hope that person who wrote that website repents, and that person puts an apology and takes down that website, leaves the link open so that people that are going to that website understand that he repents. But I definitely feel that he did so under a power and principality, that there was a false spirit, an unclean spirit that was guiding him to think and write and to post something to that level of that magnitude. Is absolutely telling for how powerful it can be through gradualism of what this drug does.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it's our nervous system. Yeah, I was a health coach and a master fitness trainer for years before I came to this walk and started farming. And even on an elite athlete level, world championship status. And when you learn what the nervous system does, it truly does, and it fires a certain way, and the brain works with the nervous system. And you see neurotoxicity in autistic children from different things. We know what it is. I won't say anything to get this video flagged, but
Right.
we see neurotoxicity from things that are injected and different
Right.
things.
That's what I
And
thought you were talking about.
the way the way
Yeah.
that the body can't respond anymore.
Yeah.
It can't respond. Its ability to respond is taken away.
Hmm.
And that's what marijuana does. It bonds itself to our nervous system, and it slows it way down to where we're in a high state, which it lets our guard down.
Yeah.
We're not sober minded anymore. we're not in control of our actual emotions because we're so delayed, and the set apart spirit can't function with us that way. It's
Yeah.
not meant to.
Yeah.
It's not meant to.
I share that scientific study in part 1 and part 2. It causes immunosuppressive effects. I didn't get into all the details that you were talking about. Some of these details you're talking about how it slows the system down, but it definitely can cause someone to be more susceptible to what should be an easy disease for the body to fight off, whether it be spiritual sickness or physical sickness.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's serious. It's deep stuff, Nathaniel. It's deep stuff, brother, and it's not a joke, as you and I both know. It's very subtle, as the enemy is very subtle.
Yeah.
He doesn't just jump out and say, "Ooh, it's me."
Right.
He doesn't just jump out and do that. And this is something that I advocated for this drug. I was a poster child for it. I was a billboard for marijuana on the East Coast for 20 years.
Mm.
And, it's something that I would argue tooth and nail, the same arguments that we're hearing. Oh, it's a seed-bearing plant. Oh, well, this. Oh, well, I'm just using it for medicine. I had all of the arguments down pat.
Yeah.
I mean, no one could argue me down on it. I would argue to the end of the sun come up and go down, and I'll still be talking about it.
Mm.
And the whole time, never lose my cool. So I always thought I won the discussion. But at the end of the day, I didn't have the truth. And the truth was that once I came to the light of the Father and I understood what being blinded by a lighter in my face with a drug looked like, that I was blinded by Satan. And the Father had to drag me out from that addiction and out from under that rock and all the other things that I had attached myself to the world and the demonic realm. And he's the only way that it all went. So it's been an amazing journey, but it's definitely been a wild ride.
So, well, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your testimony. I kind of want to make a couple points, and then so if you want to get any kind of last words, any last thoughts, if you want to share anything, and then after you share something, I'm going to go ahead and do my closing segment that I do. But what I want to just kind of touch on is I just kind of want to wrap up what it is you said. So you basically were saying, I really like what you were saying at the end, because I relate with you, like totally relate with you on that. You said that you had the arguments, the seed producing plant, I'm using it for medicine. You had all that all that down pat, to where those were like essentially like defense walls that you had put up in place, so in case any brother or any person was trying to reach you, that you had this defense grid, this defense network of knowledge. And now as you're sharing your testimony, you would say that would be improperly used knowledge that you had used as scripture and in justifying the use of getting high every day. But I think the point that was that I relate with the most on you, because I relate with all those points. The part that I relate the most is that you have to want it, and that's what you wanted. You wanted it. You had asked Yahuwah. You said like, don't turn me over to this reprobate mind. Like you had prayed for him. Like once you realized and that you started essentially to fight against the path that you were on, and that's I think the biggest difference between this Torah walk and what the Romanized mindset of like the institution of Christianity teaches, is that they teach that you are what you are. You're always going to be a sinner. You're always going to be powerless to this. I talk about this in my Life's a Garden segment in episode 5 of season 2, about how life is a garden, and we need to when things come into our garden that are classified as inappropriate, classified as things that need to be removed from our garden, thorns and thistles and weeds, when we need to when our garden, things starts coming into our garden, if we don't fight for that, all of a sudden these plants will start growing in our garden, and then 5 years, a year, 5 years, 10 years later, the garden is in complete disrepair, when in the beginning you're like, oh, it's just one little plant right here, and if that plant not taken care of, it could grow and bring its friends, and then all of a sudden you have a whole ecosystem of a mess going on in your garden. But the biggest thing, I think, is after something is classified as a weed or a parasite or something that needs to be uprooted and removed from your garden, I think the biggest fight then is wanting it. Like, how do you fight against a plant? And I'm using the metaphor plant. I know marijuana is a plant, but I'm using it as a metaphor. How do you fight against a plant in your garden? An ideology, a theology, a mindset, a drug, a chemical, something that is idolatrous that someone is on. How do you fight against something when you are enjoying it? Sin has hooks for a reason, because there's a level of enjoyment that is there. But when the Father starts triggering our conscience and helping us out, and sends messengers, sends people, even that try to penetrate through our defense shield to try to wake us up. That's the whole point of this Cannabis Commotion series. Is I shared testimony in part 4. Now here, Brother Clinton is sharing testimony in part 5. I shared scientific evidence in part 1. In the beginning of part 2, we got into mainstream scriptural doctrine, and how the mind can twist it into improper use. In part 2, we got into some fringe doctrine. In part 3, the whole purpose of bringing this out is that we're trying to bring a warning, not just through science, not just through scripture, but also through experience. And we're trying to bring a warning to the body, because people are normalizing this. So, but the thing is that you got to want it. And if you don't want it, no one's going to be able to reach out. But there are, the Father brings people, things in our paths, whether it's this or that or whatever, something big, something small, something that can help trigger us as he's trying to let us know and making us aware that we are under a spirit of delusion of whatever sense it is. 1 John 4:6, the spirit of truth or the spirit of delusion. So he's trying to send us messengers to try to reach us. But I think the most powerful thing that you shared, which is something that I'm not sure if I really highlighted the point, is that you gotta want it. You have to want to, and once you want it, then that is when the Father can step in more and then help you out more and help you with that. So I wanted to share. And the final thing I'll share before I turn it over to you to have any final comments is Proverbs chapter 24, verse 16, it says, "For 7 times a righteous man falls and rises, but the wrong one stumbles into evil." And so that's the important thing. I fell into marijuana use, into cannabis use twice after my Torah walk, and this scripture both times has helped me with that spirit of condemnation, trying to make me feel that you sinned and there's no recompense for sin. It reminds me of Hebrews chapter 6, 1 through 6 says that there's no sacrifice, no redemption once someone's tasted these spiritual gifts and fallen away from that, and trying to twist scripture in that. But the message of King David and his story of the stumblings that he's had, yet he was still held in honor even after his death, as Yahuwah is talking to his son Solomon and talking about his father with honor and respect. And then that verse, Proverbs 24:16, if you stumble, or let me rephrase, if you fall, make sure that you rise. That is righteousness. Righteousness is repenting. To repent is part of righteousness, because that means that you drop your pride. You realize that you're not good enough to overcome it on your own. You got tricked. You got deceived. The delusional spirit grew in you, whatever it is, no matter what it is, outside of just just cannabis, just in general. But the important thing is that you rise back up, is that you make that teshuva, that you soften your neck, you take a look to the right and to the left. You don't have that hard neck, that stiff neck. You realize that wait, let me just check. I think I'm going in the right direction, but let me soften my neck for a moment. Nope. You know what? Now that I dropped my pride and I'm humble enough to at least look around to see to the right or to the left if I'm going in the right direction. I definitely am not. Where is the Father? Let me find him. Oh, he's back behind me. And so then you turn around and then you walk back to Elohim. That is righteousness right there. That's part of righteousness, is dropping. That's like the first step of righteousness, if you want to say, is humbling ourselves and turning back to the Father. The first step is making that teshuva. Teshuva is part of righteousness, as a righteous thing to do, even though before the teshuva was unrighteous, but then as we turn around and walk back to the Father, then that is counted as righteousness. So I want to thank you also for telling people that you had lost gifts, and you're talking about THC toxicity, how it can cause damage to the body, mind, but then through prayer these things can be restored, and I for one can account for that things can be restored and can be repaired in the body, mind, but the most important thing is to soften our pride, our ego. Just take a time, maybe this is how the Father was reaching me the first time I got sucked into cannabis after Torah walk, was say, can you just stop for 3 days? Don't even quit. Can you stop for 3 days? So maybe if I can ask you the same question, if you're stuck in cannabis use, try to just stop for 3 days. Can you make it 3 days? And if you made it 3 days, can you make it a month? Wait till this cannabis is completely out of your system in the chemical sense. Maybe give it a month to let it come out of your system, and then judge more from a righteous mind if you want to jump back into that or not. But can you just, like, at the very least, just stop for a little bit and then reassess from there? That's what helped me too. So brother, I'll turn it back to you to say any closing comments that you want, and then I'll finish with the final segment.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand. What I was already going to say with what you're saying, pretty much in a little bit different way, is if you can't at least question what we're saying and what we've been through and what we've experienced, and you're not willing to challenge your own flesh, are you really following the way of Yah? And I've done a 40-day fast before from food.
Wow.
And it opened up my ability to connect to the Father in a miraculous way, and I can't wait to do another one. It was amazing. And it's just like what Brother Nathaniel was just saying. If you can't fast from it, and you can't do a 40-day fast from it, are you truly walking in the character of Yeshua? That's really all I've got to say about it. That's my closing statement.
That's a great, thank you for that, brother. So okay, well, I'm going to close off. Let me share something. How I met the brother here is I met the brother in his study, and here's his emails you see down here. I'll also put it in the description box. I should have done this in the beginning and in the end. I'm sorry, brother. I'm still kind of new in my in having guest speakers on and in the pattern that I'm in. So I should have done it in the beginning. But feel free and email brother if you have questions. But the reason why I'm putting this email here primarily is because he hosts some Zoom studies that meet weekly. Right now, in one of the studies, he's doing the book of Sirach, the Ecclesiasticus. It's an amazing study. For me, I'm one of the guys that's a little more standoffish with apocryphal stuff, and but I am coming around to Apocrypha. So keep me in your prayers. Bear with me. Help me to bring my guard down on things that I need to bring my guard down, things that are set apart, on information that is set apart. But I can say this: if I'll plug for the book of Sirach, Proverbs 2.0. If you love the book of Proverbs, you're gonna love the book of Sirach. It is, and I love Proverbs. Proverbs is one of my favorite books. Sirach is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. No wonder why it's not in the scriptures, because it's got so much wisdom in it that the enemy doesn't want you to have this. He wants you to fall for all of this stuff that's there. And so if you want to come on Brother Clinton's Zoom study, here's his email. Go ahead and email him with that, and then as the Ruach guides, he'll be in communication and bring you into that. So there's two other parts things that I want to share. I'm going to put a link in the description box. I'm going to put a link in the description box to a brother. He had shared with me a PDF, and I'm gonna find the link to that PDF so that you can have that. And there's a brother who had given a comment. Sorry, and I'm going to let you know right now, if you guys put a comment on the YouTube channel, it's open game. I'm going to talk about it, and if I feel led to share the comment. There's a brother who put a comment on Cannabis Commotion Part 3. I want to thank you for this comment, brother. Brother Skip. I'm going to read what he wrote here. He said, when Yahuwah took marijuana out of my life, one thing I saw was the parallel between smoking weed and burning incense to Baal. And then he puts in quotes, sacrificing to devils is an interesting phrase. Sacrificing in this instance could be translated as blowing smoke. When they burned incense to Baal, they met him in the quote unquote high places. I'm not teaching this as doctrine, but just that the parallels are undeniable. Getting high on any substance is eating at the table of devils. So I want to thank you, brother, for sharing that. I want to share this one little, coincidence, that was interesting on that. When I had talked to brother JP, he came on episode 6 on Do All Dogs Go to Heaven in season 2, episode 6. He had mentioned and shared some information with me regarding regarding a website about how the Hebrews would not be smoking, and then he shared with me this PDF, which I hadn't read at the time. But he said that when he said that they would not be smoking, that the Hebrews of old, the Israelites of old, would not be smoking marijuana. I heard in my head incense to Baal. That's what I heard in my head. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And then I talked to him more. Like I was busy at the time. Later on, I talked to him, and then he brings that point up. And then I look on my YouTube comments, and I see that Brother Skip here had mentioned that same thing. So basically, like, I heard it in the Ruach. Brother had sent me a PDF, and then I got a comment that I was on sacrificing to Baal, this blowing incense. And so that's gonna go ahead and segue into the final part that I have here. And let me go ahead and turn here to that. As we know, as my final segment, I have don't cast pearls before swine. So every episode, I take a pearl out of my jar here in the jar of pearls, and then I link that with the scriptures. As you, brothers and sisters, are not swine, so I can cast this pearl before you. And so I am going to go into here. We'll go into not that section, not that one. Sorry, I switched my my screens around here, and so let me find where it's at here. Yeah, okay. Into this section here, and we're going to turn to Leviticus chapter 26, verse 30. And this is the pearl that I felt led to share. So this is Leviticus 26 is the blessing and curses chapter. Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26. We'll get into the blessings and curses chapter more when I talk about the camouflage sauce hidden in plain sight series coming here in season 2. But here in Leviticus chapter 26:30, he says, "And I shall destroy," and this is part of the curses that they're under, "and I shall destroy your high places and cut down your sun pillars and put your carcasses on the carcasses of your idols, and my being shall loathe you. And I shall turn your cities into ruins and lay your set apart places waste and not smell your sweet fragrances." And so we have to ask a question: is what is the high places that they were burning incense to? So they were burning incense to Baal. What are these high places? Yes, they were up on a hill, but is there a connection to sacrificing to Baal and a burning of incense on these high places? And is that part of the etymology of why we say that we get high? Is it a coincidence that that Nimrod's father is Cush, and that Cush's sons felt that they settled in the Indo-Kush mountain range, and this is where marijuana Kush gets its name, in the same sections where Cush's sons settled in parts of India and Pakistan, Afghanistan kind of area. Food for thought. So with that, guard your heart, guard your soul, guard the ra, or pay the toll.